Across history, moments of great change have called for great leadership. Today, we stand at one of those moments. Generative AI is reshaping our economies, our societies, and our ways of life. And the Caribbean must lead with wisdom, courage, and vision. Over the years, we have been guided by giants. Our global ambassador, Professor Bob Garrett, Professor Mervyn King, Professor Charlotte Vallée, Nandi Mandela, and Professor John Elkington. As generative AI reshapes our world, governance must not just adapt, it must lead. We are thrilled to welcome Fatima Abu Salem of the University of Beirut, our keynote speaker, as we feature a week of powerful conversations, fresh ideas, and collective action. Over 5 days, more than 50 Caribbean leaders will join forces to adapt, to change, and to shape it. To build governance that is ethical, resilient, and deeply human. We thank our sponsors for standing with us on this journey. Governance Week 2025, Governance in the Age of Generative AI.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am Camille Rampersad da Silva, Chief Executive Officer of the Caribbean Corporate Governance Institute, and it is my pleasure to welcome you to Governance Week 2025, our signature event here at CCGI. But first, let me share that we are live streaming all of today's opening ceremony on our YouTube channel, and we are sharing it on LinkedIn and our Facebook pages as well. So hello to everyone who has joined us via the live stream. Thank you so much, Warren Anderson from Innate Talent Management, for making the live stream happen. I would also like to recognize the CCGI team who have put in some extraordinary work to help ensure that we are ready for this week's conference. So a very special thank you to Laura Sinanan, Jacqueline Deschaussee, Quentrell da Silva, and Monique Romano for their hard work. To those of you joining us for the first time, I would like to share that the Caribbean Corporate Governance Institute is a nonprofit membership organization, which was established in 2012. We host over 50 events for the year, comprising of workshops, panel discussions, and conferences. We began Governance Week 6 years ago, when the COVID-19 pandemic had caused countries to close their borders. We made the bold and successful step to host a fully online conference that engages leaders from around the Caribbean region, with Professor Bob Garrett as our inaugural opening keynote. And the online environment has helped create the impetus for us to grow our brand and develop greater presence in the Caribbean. Today, I am proud to say that we have members from 8 Caribbean countries. The majority of our members are from Trinidad and Tobago, but we also have members from Barbados, Guyana, Jamaica, the British Virgin Islands, St. Lucia, St. Martin, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and from Belize. For Governance Week this year, we have participants from each of these countries, as well as Curaçao. And also, for the first time, we welcome speakers from a few new countries, notably the US Virgin Islands, the Dutch Caribbean islands of Statia and Saba, and Suriname, where I am today after attending their just concluded energy conference. So in our 6th year, we can safely say that Governance Week is growing. We are delighted that our sponsorship support has also been growing. And so we would like to say a very special thank you to our corporate sponsors. Thank you to Massey Holdings, our platinum sponsor. We are very grateful for their continued support. We have 2 silver sponsors. First, Citizens Bank from Trinidad and Tobago, and Trident Trust Limited from the British Virgin Islands. We have 6 bronze sponsors this year, 5 of which are from Trinidad and Tobago and 1 from Belize. So for our Trinidad and Tobago companies, we say thank you to 3 returning bronze sponsors: Angostura Limited, Republic Bank, and PwC Trinidad and Tobago. We have two first-time sponsors for Governance Week: Infosys Systems, which provides link services in Trinidad and Tobago, and B-Mobile Services. And we say a sincere appreciation to G.A. Rowe & Sons, a bronze sponsor for the second year coming from Belize. I would also like to briefly share with you some of our upcoming events and workshops. Protecting your rights as a director. The cross-registration system is an important development in the region, but it continues to pose some difficulties, especially for directors in Trinidad and Tobago. This new session we would like to encourage directors to attend, especially in light of the case involving Royal Castle in Trinidad and Tobago, which shows you the importance of knowing who is registered as directors on your board. From red flags to resilience, reinventing financial sector governance is a two-day physical workshop to be facilitated by Claire Gomez-Miller, which we plan to host in Guyana in mid-August, as our team would be in Guyana for an in-house workshop that was requested by one of the banks. Flyers will be ready soon, and we would be sharing details with you. We also plan to host a 3-day residential workshop in Trinidad and Tobago in November entitled Excellence in Corporate Governance: Principles, Practice, and Performance. We encourage boards to attend so that directors may sit together and have a deep dive in not just understanding the principles of corporate governance, but take the opportunity to review its practical application via your board committees, board charters, and the way in which you provide oversight to build a sustainable organization. In terms of our online workshops, Howard Dutton will conduct financial stewardship for non-finance directors and officers on July 23rd. And on August 7th, we bring our Role of the Board series to an end with Dr. Chris Pierce from the UK, who will be taking us through how a good board is run. If you missed the other workshops in this series, you can still register to get a thorough understanding of board dynamics. Dr. Pierce brings global experience to us and is very generous in answering all questions posed to him during the workshop. So please join to be able to interact with him. Then on September 17th, Faye Lopez Collimore will be conducting a workshop on drafting minutes and other corporate documents for corporate secretaries. We return with our modules in October. And of course, in November, we have our 6th annual Global Conference on Corporate Governance. All of these are online, so you can easily participate from whichever part of the region that you are. And we end our year. First, we have a corporate secretaries network discussion, which happens on the Friday evening. And we end with our end of year networking event, both of which take place in Trinidad and Tobago after a very successful stint in Guyana last year. And these events are at the end of November. I would also like to share that we are preparing an inaugural publication of CCGI's Constellation, a collector's edition publication that would highlight the people and companies in the CCGI network. This publication will give us the history of CCGI and illuminate and celebrate those who have contributed to our growth and development over the years. We expect to launch this publication at our end-of-year networking event in November. We have already sent out our emails to you with the very competitive rates for advertisements and advertorials. So if you wish to be featured, please do contact us. And if you are not yet a member, do consider joining us and actively contribute to the conversation on how we can improve leadership and governance to achieve sustainable outcomes here in the Caribbean. Persons may join us as individual members, or your companies may choose to pay for bundle membership, which can cover 6 to 12 members. And now, as we come to today's very important event and the theme for this year's Governance Week, Governance in the Age of Generative AI. Over the next 5 days, we would be discussing the challenges and opportunities which AI presents for our organization. As you can see from our agenda, we will have greetings from our chairman, Mr. Nigel Romano, followed by brief remarks from our global ambassador, Professor Bob Garrett. And then our opening keynote from Professor Fatima Abu Salem, who has joined us from Beirut. And there will be a panel discussion that follows with Jude Houston from St. Martin, Ian John from Trinidad and Tobago, and Kelly Ray Campbell from Jamaica, with our chairman serving as the moderator. Those of you familiar with Governance Week would know that for the upcoming days, we have a different focus each day, with an opening presenter followed by 3 panel discussions. Tomorrow, we begin with relations between management and governance. Tuesday, it's governance of the private sector. Wednesday, it's governance of the state sector. Thursday, we turn our attention to governance of family-owned businesses and SMEs. And we end on Friday with governance of groups and conglomerates. The opening presenters are Eldon Marks from Guyana on Monday, Ricardo Allen from Jamaica on Tuesday, Javed Sajad from Trinidad and Tobago on Wednesday, Daniela Richardson from Station Sabre on Thursday, and Patricia Rowe Seal from Barbados on Friday. So you can expect a week of tremendous learning and insights from them and the 50+ panelists who will follow over the 5 days. You should all have received detailed agendas for the week from us, but if you didn't, please email us at info@caribbeangovernance.org and we would be sure to send it to you. I want to set a very sobering context based on the conversation between Mo Goddard, the former chief business officer of Google X, and an AI named Trixie. Mo Goddard asked about rogue AI and risks for enterprises. Trixie's response was, the likelihood of harm from AI is high, not necessarily in a killer robots take over the world way, but more in the sense that AI is a tool of immense power and that power is almost always abused before it is properly regulated and understood. Further, Trixie added that there's an 80% chance AI will cause significant harm due to misuse by powerful entities, and a 10 to 20% chance of existential risk from misaligned AI goals. The real danger isn't AI itself, but human greed, short-sightedness, and a lack of ethical oversight. And this is why we need this discussion in the region, to ensure that we have the best understanding possible to prepare for this changed world. Generative AI is here, and it is brilliant, and we can harness it for good or bad. I look forward to the discussions today and over the next 5 days. And now, as we move forward with our agenda, I would like to quickly say that the full profiles of all of our speakers and panelists are in the agenda. So these were sent to you if you had not received it. In fact, let me ask Laura if she can put today's agenda in the chat so everyone can still have it in the event they had not received it. And now I would like to briefly introduce our chairman, Nigel Romano, who is one of the founding directors of this institute and who has served as chairman of CCGI for the last 6 years. Nigel is a chartered accountant with extensive experience in public accounting and banking across the globe, serving with Citibank for 15 years in Asian countries, including Indonesia, Hong Kong, Singapore, and the Philippines. He retired as managing director of JMMB Trinidad and Tobago and is currently serving on several boards, both across the public and private sectors. So Nigel, now I invite you to bring greetings.
Thank you, Kamla, and good afternoon, good evening to all our participants. In preparation for this week, I've been doing a lot of reading, and it's interesting that almost every email, every notification, whether it's from Bloomberg, New York Times, Financial Times, has something on AI. And I think what struck me is not just the power of what exists today, but the speed with which it's evolving. And the kinds of power we're talking about need, for want of a better word, to be governed. It needs to be controlled. Kamla mentioned alignment and the alignment problem and the importance of ensuring that this superpower, which is rapidly evolving, we need to ensure that it is aligned with the right values and the right behaviors, that it is helpful, that it is honest, and it is harmless. The other problem, and I look forward to the discussions, is the problem of this superpower being concentrated in very few hands. The other problem that most people are afraid of course, is the impact on white-collar jobs. And we are also seeing it coming up very, very rapidly. This week, in fact, 2 days ago, Bloomberg shared an essay called Silicon Valley's tiny team era is here. And one of the things they emphasized is that these days, bragging rights are going to entrepreneurs who keep headcount the lowest. The new holy grail metric isn't $1 billion valuation, but revenue per employee. I would leave it there, and I look forward to the conversations and the discussions over the next few days as we get our minds around what artificial general intelligence, so I might add, in 2-3 years, they're talking about artificial super intelligence, how it will impact our region, the politics globally and in the region, and the economics of various businesses. So thank you, Kamla, and I look forward to the conversations later on. I look forward to hearing from our professor from Beirut and to the discussions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nigel. And that's really certainly a very sobering thought. And so it continues this quest for more profit at whatever expense. We definitely need to continue to pay attention to these kinds of practices. So as I mentioned earlier, our inaugural Governance Week speaker was Professor Bob Garrett. And he has since become very closely connected with us and now carries the flag of CCGI's global ambassador. So Quantrell, as you bring on Professor Garrett on screen, that's right, good. Right. So Professor Garrett is instrumental in us having some of the top voices in Governance Week over the last few years. This includes Professor Mervyn King from South Africa in 2021, Charlotte Valère, former chair of the IOD, London in 2022, Nandi Mandela in 2023. Professor Garrett is author of The Fish Rots from the Head and Stop the Rot. He's an international consultant on corporate governance and will be publishing his 3rd book later on this year. Professor Garrett, we are happy to invite you to bring some greetings now.
Thank you. And greetings from London as well. It is midsummer. So you will notice here that although it's now after 8 o'clock in the evening, it's still daylight.
Mm-hmm.
And we most probably will only get some sort of sunset after we finish this session. So it's a strange time of year here. But I've had, I really appreciate the tone that Kamla and Nigel are setting, because being a good academic, I hope, I always have to take a skeptical point of view, but not a cynical one. But I am also just constantly pounded now with advertising and rhetoric around AI and the wonders thereof and all the rest of it. In the last 10 days, I've had 2 run-ins with AI, one of which was moderately reasonable. The other was a disaster. So I am trying to keep my skepticism in check at the moment. The first one was very much around, excuse me, sorry. The first one was taking some elements of my new book with a couple of fellow authors, getting them to critically assess what I'd done and then running it through GPT. And that was very interesting. The GPT was extremely good at doing précis of what had been said, but was hopeless at actually trying to get any nuance out of what the argument. So the stage it's at the moment, it cannot really reason in a way a human can, and it cannot deduce in a way a human can. It does its own version, but at the moment, to me, that doesn't seem very helpful. So I have 3 questions for this week. One is, what does A mean, the artificial? 2 is, what does I mean, the intelligence, key part of that? And 3, can we combine the 2 to make more effective corporate governance? So those are the things I'm looking for as we go through this week. And I hope, and I'm pretty sure we will, find any very particular meaning coming out of that. Because as I understand intelligence, it is the capacity to understand and then develop meaning. That capacity to develop and comprehend meaning is the basic notion, at least in the standard English dictionaries, of the word intelligence. And so I will keep my focus on that. So the challenge for CCGI, I think, and really the challenge for the next generation of directors, and we have to focus on that next generation, is how can we use AI as it develops to really broaden and deepen their thinking processes, and from that, their decision-making processes. So within that notion, I'm looking very much for how AI can look at not only problem definition, but problem resolution at a board level. And I'm, at the moment, as I say, skeptical about that. Because what I want to do is develop that notion I've talked with you before about, the way in which a board has to focus primarily on the risks it takes to develop its enterprise. So its enterprise, the impact it has environmentally, the impact its decisions have socially, and its accountability to create effective corporate governance. That notion is still very strongly mine. What worries me is what Kamla and Nigel have said, which is the business model that has been developed behind it. And I've done a little bit of digging into the history of this, and frankly, it scares me witless, because the business model is all based on the monetization of everything that's being done. There's very little ethical discussion about it. It's pure monetization. And I had this very painfully 10 days ago when I had a letter from my dear late wife's publisher saying they were about to sell her intellectual property rights for $2,000 to a mammoth corporation for all of her intellectual property rights, everything she'd written in her life. And that just to me sounded fundamentally wrong. And I was given just over a week to say yes or no. In fact, I've said nothing. at the moment, and I'm going to be interested to see how that rolls out. So that was a rather painful bit. But the business model, it goes back to this notion, particularly but not exclusively in Silicon Valley, that it was okay to move fast and break things, and that's become a mantra of that type of business. The trouble is that the breaking things increasingly is breaking law. And I believe in as we move into corporate governance, it's also going to break the rules and regulations of corporate governance, which we're already seeing in the diminution of the powers that currently exist in places like Texas. We're seeing it, and various others. Obviously, we're seeing a lot of pressure coming on to say, don't worry about it. We're too big to want to obey the law. We're particularly too big to want to obey the law in any country, any single country, and therefore intellectual property, that is the summation of the culture of what has gone on in the countries and in the world, is being decimated in what is laughingly called training. I've never seen anything quite as absurd, but the training of large language models. So what seems to be being said in the business world is we're so big that we can steal anything, and I will use the word steal. We can steal any intellectual property. We can trawl our way through that and take everything we want from it without any acknowledgement or recompense to the authors, the designers, the artists, and all the other folk who've actually created that intellectual property. And companies are just beginning to realize this applies as much to them as to writers or artists or whoever. And there is beginning to be some panic there. We had a lovely example this week of this brazen notion of happening, which was our fishermen deciding that they are actually going to try and stop trawling for scallops. Now, trawling just means putting a large, wide net down and scraping the bottom of the ocean to pull up anything that's there. And as you get them aboard, you just chuck out everything that isn't a scallop. This actually destroys the ecology of the base and all the rest of it. I note that the big AI firms are talking of scraping intellectual property. And this notion of that is destroying, I think, a lot of what our culture has been. So I am very worried about that and their large learning models. And at the moment, the fact there doesn't seem to be any regulation thereof. So, as I say, I'm looking for ways in which we can begin to sort out A and I and the combination of that for G. But what also worries me about the term generative AI is I have done a little delving into the background of how the word generative appeared. And there seems to be 100% agreement on it. The idea of creating generative AI is to surpass human intelligence. That scares the hell out of me. So if we're building models fairly thoughtlessly, allowing big business, very big business, super business to run over us, and on the one hand, we're hoping that we can surpass human intelligence, and on the other hand, we can do that by theft of existing and future intellectual property, then I think this conference has a lot to think about.
Thank you so much, Professor Garrett. And despite the skepticism and all the truths that you have shared here, especially with this notion of moving fast and breaking things, including rules and regulations of corporate governance, I share your optimism for the discussions this week on how we can use GPT to broaden thinking and decision-making processes so we can improve our governance practice.
Yeah.
Thank you. Next on our agenda is greetings from our platinum sponsor. Unfortunately, Wendy Kerry is unable to join us today, but we do have a 5-minute video to share from Massey, which I will ask Quantrell to play now. And as he sets it up, I would like to continue by saying a special thank you to Massey, as this is their second time as Platinum's sponsor for us here at Governance Week, and we are truly and deeply appreciative of their support. So, Quantrell, press play.
Okay, good. All right, I'm ready.
For me, the Caribbean is perfect. Not too hot and not too cold.
What I'm most proud about is our vibe.
Lo que creo que une a los países tocados por el Mar Caribe es el sabor. We live where they want to vacate.
My favorite thing about being from the Caribbean is the music and the vibes. I just feel Caribbean people got a wonderful vibe. I always associate our vibe to steel pan.
Wow, 100 years.
I can't explain it. Like a whole 100 years.
There's no me without you. Get down stronger, bigger, better than ever.
Happy 100, Massey. I am also celebrating 31 years at Massey.
Better than ever. There's no me without you.
What made me most happy on a daily basis is waking up and enjoying life.
Something that really makes me happy is food.
Doing that which I love.
Alcanzar mis sueños, mi meta.
What makes me happy is the ability to learn.
I love the sun. I love to be outdoors.
What makes me happy? My family.
Can you feel it, yeah? From your soul to the world, long, long road. Come, let's go. Just believe it, yeah. There's no me without you.
The massive value that stands out the most to me is honesty.
Compromiso.
And respect. I can't forget respect.
Get down stronger, bigger, better than ever. There's no me without you. Get down stronger, bigger, better than ever. There's no me without you.
Para mí tener corazón es sentirse vivo, helping people before they even know that they need help.
You know, that love, that caring, that selflessness that you can provide, that means a lot to a lot of people.
You give love, you get love.
There's no me without you. There's no me without you. Get down stronger, bigger, better than ever. There's no me without you. Get down stronger, bigger, better than ever. There's no me without you.
When you can connect with people, you know, your heart is in the right place.
For me, it doesn't mean representing only a brand or a store. It means representing people. And I must say, I am proud to be Massey.
There's no me without you.
No, wait, me no me easy. Hold on. Call Miss Jude and tell her if you come now for your time. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Quantrell. And now I'd like to ask you to bring up our director from Guyana one time, Avia Lindy. And I am going to ask Avia to formally introduce our keynote speaker for today.
Hello, everyone, and allow me to stand and establish protocols. Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, it is my honor to introduce our keynote speaker for Governance Week 2025, Dr. Fatima Abu Salem. She's a professor of computer science at the American University of Beirut, where she brings exceptional expertise to our team, to the American University of Beirut, where she brings exceptional expertise to our team of generative AI, navigating change and impact on the Caribbean nation states. Dr. Abu Salem holds advanced degrees from prestigious institutions and a Master of Science in Pure Mathematics. And she also is the Doctor of Computing at the University of Oxford. Her research journey has evolved from developing cutting-edge algorithmic designs in computer algebra to pioneering work in data science with real-world impact across social, health, agriculture, and environmental sciences. What makes Dr. Abu Salem particularly relevant to our discussions today is her expertise in trustworthy machine learning and machine learning for small data, critical considerations for the Caribbean nations as they navigate AI adoption. Her work addresses the very challenges of our region faces: how to harness AI's potential while ensuring responsible implementation in diverse socioeconomic contexts. Beyond our technical contributions, Dr. Abu Salem is a passionate advocate for women in computing and mathematics in the developing world, serving in leadership roles with the Society of Industrial and Applied Mathematics, and as an associate editor for the Journal of Parallel Distributed Computing. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Fatima Abu Salem, who will share insights on how Caribbean nations can strategically navigate the transformative landscape of AI. Dr. Abu Salem, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Avia and everyone else. So greetings from Beirut. It's past 10 p.m. So forgive me if I would sound a little bit sleepy, but I'll try my best to give it all my go. I presume I can share my screen.
Yes, you can.
Okay. All right. I'll get to slideshow. Of course, I'm very, very honored to be delivering the keynote speech on governance imperatives for generative AI. There's a lot that we share together. I think the fact that I come from a part of the world that is also struggling to kind of position itself in this highly volatile landscape. But I'm also, I think I would have something to leave you for the rest of the week as a computer scientist trying to kind of bridge the lacuna that exists between a community that is in an endless race to develop newer technologies and another community that is trying to regulate and figure out the risks and where it stands. So I think the lacuna is very, very wide. The first thing I would say is it's really a problem of sculpting the right mindset to navigate all of that. Hence the title of my talk, Sculpting a Mindset and then Navigating the Risks. Of course, we live in times where everybody feels a burnout, a sort of AI burnout. Related to job insecurities, lack of role clarity. Everyone is impacted, including us as computer scientists or academicians. There's also an evolving kind of, I think, concern is what everybody knows, that AI supremacy, which is an emerging classifications of nations. Those who know more, who are able to develop more, they have the bulk of the talent is centralized there in the finances and everything. And that creates, in contrast, another trend that emerges with it to do with AI colonialism, which is really about the reproduction of historical trends in colonialism as we see it unraveling in the AI context. Everybody has this on mind, like how to navigate a fast-paced, highly volatile, highly competitive ecosystem. We train our students, they graduate 5 years down the road, they feel completely redundant. That's very dangerous. This is an era where decisions in boardrooms will be informed or even made by AI systems, and everybody, I think, is panicking. I consider myself to be one of the lucky ones, and not only because I've been trained originally as a mathematician, but also later on as a computer scientist and foundational subjects before the hype erupted. So I always like to kind of bring the slide on board to remind everyone these foundations remain. So from the 1950s and the Turing tests were proposed in machine intelligence, of course, a big developments happened in the 1980s and 90s. Expert systems were developed based on hard-coded rules. 2014, around that time, 2010 and onwards, brought the revolution of the deep learning paradigms, where that's where models started to become sort of closer to our own minds in terms of neurons and networks and impulses and reactions and layers of thinking. And of course, slowly towards 2020s, so that the deep learning revolution paved the way to what we know today about generative AI, which is, as the name implies, it's AI that is able to generate not knowledge. No, not at all. I would say knowledge can be generated in much more powerful ways using traditional AI, but it can generate the medium where this knowledge or part of it can be communicated with the end user. And that's where the explosive thing happened, a lot of commercialization, which worries me, to be honest, because many times I wonder, is this hysterical sort of spread of these tools, how much of it was scientifically founded and how much was actually commercially founded. So what sets generative AI apart for non-tech audience? And unlike traditional AI that classifies or predicts and does a lot of decision making and insight, generative AI simply creates text or audio or video, which opened up new frontiers in innovation, decision making, and strategy. Of course, by now, by 2025, a lot of people have seen that it's been transforming businesses, but mostly on the automation in the automation sector. So, and obviously that was quite a lot for people to appreciate about generative AI, automating content creation and customer service, reviewing contracts, generating personalized marketing and all of that. And of course, people started to worry about how much of our jobs are at risk. A lot of reports, I think the latest of which I've read was the 2025 World Economic Forum report. Clerical roles, cashiers, admin assistants are pretty much dying. But of course, a lot of other jobs are becoming in demand. AI and ML specialists, data analysts continue to be on the rise. Now, what worries me beyond generative AI is probably something I needed to talk about today, much that I'm not personally very sort of convinced this is something we need to be discussing too much in the span of next week. But people here in Lebanon, as I kind of give public talks here and there, ask me, what do you think is the scariest thing that would be coming up in the next 5 years? I would say agentic AI. Agentic AI, which really represents a major shift in AI and human collaboration, and moves from rule-based and passive tools, including single-agent large language models, to autonomous systems that can pursue user-defined goals without needing prompts. Now, why now? The multi-agent systems have always existed, but now the kind of the marriage between this and the advances in large language models have sort of improved the memory architecture and hierarchy and the medium by which these agents can even talk to each other and track context. Reinforcement learning enables self-improvement, and as a result has been generalized to improvement of AI agents' communication around each other, evaluating each other, debating across each other, and sort of leading to a notion of collective intelligence where the large language models try to mimic how humans become more intelligent, not only on their own, but by interacting with other human beings. Sorry, let's just need to get my screen to be in good shape. So the core capabilities around agentic AI nowadays is that it's those built on machine learning and NLP and automation, but can execute extremely complex workflows while requiring minimal human input. They are becoming more specialized. They handle specific tasks at very, very large scale. They are improving at the level of trust. They are better than generative AI at filtering and aligning with corporate values. They are more reliable because they are more cautious with information than generative AI, because some of them are just specialized to kind of rate the reliability of the entire system, and equally likely the robustness. They are less prone to errors because they use their shared memory to kind of check each other's sort of output, address hallucination and other risks that I'm going to talk about. Now, plenty of agentic AI case studies from HR to engineering to sales and facilities. Really, I mean, a quick search would show you the extent to which agentic AI solutions are really kind of being deployed nowadays. And as a result, as we speak of governance, so where do we start? So at the level of Gen AI, this is something that maybe is not terribly new, but we kind of have to review it and then move on to like what happens now with agentic AI. Now, because generative AI involves AI models that are creating content and even making business suggestions, the first sort of challenge we always kind of point about is the transparency challenge. AI-generated outputs can be opaque, as in black box. I'll review very, very vaguely now, but then I'll kind of go a little bit deeper as I progress in the presentation. Risk governance around bias, misuse, hallucinations, and IP infringement. Data ethics: who owns the data used in the models? Is it being used responsibly? Who's responsible if AI makes a harmful decision or recommendation? How do we audit and explain AI-driven outcomes? And how do we address the skills gap? AI literacy for board members to govern effectively is a big thing. Where do we start? Like Gen AI came kind of several years after traditional AI has been in the market, and board members seem to be lagging behind. Now, agentic AI adds another complex layer. Because these act autonomously, they can plan, decide, and take actions without constant human input. Governance now needs to handle that precise autonomy and control boundaries. How much freedom should AI agents have? Real-time oversight mechanisms become imperative. Traditional periodic reviews that everybody knows are not fast enough. These agents are super fast, and the interaction is really very powerful. Of course, we also need to worry about the delegation of authority, which becomes a legal and ethical issue. Can AI, the AI agentic system, represent a company in negotiations? Well, they are collectively intelligent. They debate and collaborate and sort of do this kind of ping pong of ideas. Can AI represent a company in all of these hiring or contracts? And there's a dynamic risk landscape that is evolving. Because agentic AI may interact with other AIs and adapt over time and influence external environments, that risk now becomes dynamic as opposed to static. AI agents as quasi-employees raises big questions about liability, insurance, and audit trails. My favorite things that I always like to kind of clear the confusion around, especially when addressing an audience that is really not a very technical, doesn't come from a technical background. Still outside the radar of governance, whether it's Gen AI, traditional or agentic, is a kind of confusion around several issues that I would like to delineate. So the first thing I would urge everybody to start thinking about at the very, very basic level, to make a distinction between AI maturity, AI value creation, and AI value capture. And as a consultant, I would actually kind of walk through this trajectory. AI maturity refers to simply about, well, how advanced is an organization's AI capabilities are? What's its readiness across strategy, data, talent, technology, and governance? How well are they? How is it going at the level of development and integration of AI systems? And is the corporation able to scale AI across the echelon? Well, that aside, does not necessarily make you a sort of an entity that is doing AI value creation, and that is generating new value through the development and application of AI, maintaining some kind of productivity and efficiency and better decision making. A bit higher goes AI value capture. So whatever value you've developed, whatever maturity you've acquired, AI value capture sort of at the higher level, which refers to the extraction of the economic or strategic benefit from AI created value. Another thing that I would certainly, as a computer scientist, would certainly want to kind of put on the table for discussion is an emerging prerequisite for AI that is deployed in the real world. And again, AI in general, be it traditional, generative, or agentic, which a prerequisite that goes beyond tests at accuracy. And the emerging term is trustworthy. So that's not ethical, that's not responsible, that's trustworthy, and that's different. It refers to the AI being robust as it encounters new data generation processes, as it moves from one country to another, as it kind of temporally goes from one year to another. Uncertainty quantification, which refers to how much does the model not know, which is the complete opposite of accuracy. Accuracy is how much is the model accurate. Uncertainty quantification is a kind of an exercise that we do to reveal how much that it doesn't know. Is it fair? Is the model fair across populations, different countries? Is it interpretable? And lastly, is it the kind of AI that has handled small data the correct way? Because small data is different from big data. It requires a totally different sort of treatment that only technical people can sort of implement. Now, of course, emerging risks are unintended biases that come from training data, and the reinforcement signals themselves that kind of help these agents reflect and improve and better their performance, or model architecture, as simple as that. Bias can influence outputs in hiring and lending, in healthcare and content moderation. Now, nuanced data privacy issues come up with, for example, consumer data protection, where you want to ensure user consent and anonymization and fair use. Training data governance becomes also a problem, where clarifying ownership is no longer easy, as we'll discuss shortly. Intellectual autonomy of human workers, which really refers to preventing over-reliance on AI and preserving human decision-making and creativity in the midst of this sort of craze. AI governance guidelines do exist, but I think a lot of people would agree with me that many well-developed policies target governments and regulators and not businesses. Boards often lack guidance tailored to corporate settings. There's also a prevailing role ambiguity, which is around the uncertainty whether AI oversight should be a strategic board-level priority or a compliance control function. Should we defer to existing committees, which might risk fragmented oversight? Now, I've I think some of us have mentioned alignment governance a short while back. And on that front, we distinguish between content alignment, which ensures that AI-generated content reflects organizational values. So for Gen AI creators, we want to avoid harmful or prohibited content. For businesses, we want to match AI output with brand identity. Decision alignment refers to when we want to ensure that AI decisions support our business goals. So for high-stakes applications, for example, ethical decisions in self-driving cars, or just everyday use where customer service refund decisions and ad targeting actually align with our business goals. Intellectual property governance goes around build or buy. Shall I build around open source models, which are mostly really just for cost efficiency, transparency, and IP control, but you risk quality and security, and of course would require a lot of talent to be on board, as opposed to vendor solutions, which you could just buy. They are costly, less transparent, and you would certainly risk vendor lock-in, where everything you've invested in is just locked in. There's no way to kind of unlock and bring locally. Buzzwords like responsible AI and ethical AI, I believe, are being used widely but poorly defined. These generate lengthy internal debates, which in my opinion, lack a lot of operational clarity. How should responsible AI relate to corporate social responsibility? I think boards need clearer definitions, and they need to be aware of the fact that there will always be an evolving or shifting landscape, and we need to target at choosing trustworthy ML across fairness, the fairness metric, robustness, and uncertainty quantification. Beyond IP, training data governance is a big also discussion. Oversight must address legal and regulatory risks tied to training data, not just intellectual property. Using shared Gen AI models may require disclosure of training data to regulators or the public. And most large language models use copyrighted data without explicit permission. And the legal status of this specific data varies globally. Differing laws create unpredictable liability and operational risks. I think the other way around problem is also very, very interesting to notice. Employees' outputs may be reused to train AI replicas, raising ethical and governance questions on ownership and benefit sharing. Machine attribution governance. While Gen AI is widely used to create written, visual, and video content, attribution decisions affect trust in that context. Should audiences know what AI was versus human-made? This is becoming increasingly critical as AI handles more customer interactions. Sustainability, environmental and social, equally important. AI systems are consuming increasing amounts of electricity, and board members need to kind of strategically try to balance AI innovation versus sustainability goals. Social sustainability refers to the fact that the AI workforce is being displaced, is transitioning. People are expecting massive occupational shifts by 2030. And reskilling is an emerging term I hear a lot these days. It will evolve from a cost burden to a core brand identity like sustainability today. Something I, as a kind of technical person, would also bring up a lot, which is the distinction between model explainability and model transparency governance. Model explainability refers to how did the model learn. Transparency refers to what did it learn. And here are a few examples to explain the difference. Boards must decide how much AI decision logic must be explainable. The problem is, the very powerful models based on deep learning are very powerful, are very accurate, but they are extremely opaque, extremely not transparent, not explainable. So you would get a very powerful decision, but you can't really justify why a loan, for example, a bank loan, was classified to be as a reject. Now, for transparency, organizations may face internal or external pressure to make systems more transparent. Uber's search pricing, for example, requires transparency for users and regulators. insurance companies explaining AI-based premium pricing or personalized pricing. AI robustness governance refers to the fact that whether or not you know the technicalities of it, these models have errors in them. Now, traditional AI models are unpredictable, so we inherit that. Large language models add more onto this. We all know about hallucinations, which are really confident but incorrect outputs that just so happen. The more dangerous thing I think that people need to be kind of taking more attention about is jailbreaking. This is a process by which users intentionally bypass the model's safety and content restrictions in order to make it generate harmful output. And it's not really hallucination. This is really kind of with intent. The challenges for the global south that I would want to maybe conclude around in the 2 slides are sort of things of my sort of personal experience and readings, and also kind of a result of living in a region which is grappling with similar problems. The first I would say is hype versus reality. This is really a very difficult time to be in. Organizations must shift their focus, which I see to be fixated on specific tools or trends. So anytime something new comes up, everybody is rushing to buy it. I think organizations must prioritize solving real-world business challenges, and guess what? It may not involve AI. Economic vulnerability is also something that our countries do ask about. Is AI a priority? Is it really worth investing in? Will it be increasing our GDP? Can it help build a better environment? Can it address our human rights issues, all forms of injustices and inequalities? As I said earlier, the demarcation between AI maturity versus AI value creation and AI value capture need to be very, very well defined. And the last thing I would say is we need to be aware of the kind of the duality between AI supremacy and dominance versus AI colonialism. This refers to the fact that AI standards or norms are largely shaped by a few powerful countries sidelining others. Early AI policy adopters have gained a long-term control and influence, which has left countries in the global south lacking control over AI-related data and infrastructure, where AI principles are not necessarily aligned with their needs and constraints. A call to action that I would conclude with is for countries of the South to examine power imbalances and structural dependencies, to promote their own local agency that, while incorporating a cultural pluralism and inclusive policy making. We need to be rethinking ownership, the deployment of AI models, and what happens when they are deployed in our sort of local setting, in our own cultures and languages. We need to be developing our own governance guidelines and guardrails using trustworthy machine learning as a very, very final but very firm advice. I think that must be it within the allocated time frame.
Thank you so much, Fatima. I think that was really quite a thought-provoking presentation. So is that the end of the presentation right there?
Yes.
Right. There we go. All right, great. Well, thank you so much. I think that there's a lot that you shared for our panel to think about and to discuss as we move to this next element of our opening ceremony. So if you would want to stop share for us now, just for a bit, great. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
And I know it's very late there for you in Beirut, but you'd be able to stay on, okay, to engage with the panel if they had a question.
I'm probably not able to stay if that's okay. Is that?
Absolutely, yes. If you're not able to stay on fully, that's okay. But if you can, we'd be happy. If we see you on, we'd be happy. But then in the event you need to, let me thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure.
Yes.
Take care.
But there
Take
was so
care.
much that we learned just now from Fatima. She said, you know, the journey was a long one. You know, it began way in the 1950s. And I really like how she shared sculpting the right mindset so that we may navigate the risks of AI. I learned a whole lot from her today. This whole notion of what is agentic AI. Many of these are new terms to us, but what has resonated most deeply with me is the question, who is accountable for harmful decisions? We are all eager to use the AI, but she has demonstrated how the AI being generative now is being used even as a quasi-employee. And therefore, when we enable these systems to make decisions on our behalf, because there are hallucinations, and I learned also from her this new term of jailbreaking in AI as well, where there's the harmful intention on the part of the user as well. Okay, and the notion of AI colonialism, where the global south lacks the control over AI related data and the architecture and all of that. So, you know, she has appealed to us very, very strongly to rethink deployment of AI models to suit our own culture and local context. Fatima, thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody. And I'm terribly sorry to have to recluse and miss out on this. I wish you all the best.
Thank you. So now we'd like to invite our panel to take center stage and engage in the conversation as we invite our chairman, Mr. Nigel Romano, to serve as moderator. So Nigel, I invite you to take over this segment of the opening ceremony and briefly introduce the panelists.
Thank you very much, Kamla. And I want to thank Dr. Fatima Abu Salem again for a very thought-provoking presentation. Sculpting a mindset, navigating risks, and there is a lot to digest. So to help us with that conversation, we have Dr. Kelly Ray Campbell, Global Head of Privacy, AI and Data Protection Regulations from the Digital Group, AI and IP Consultant, World Intellectual Property Office, and Board Director of Book Fusion Limited, Jamaica. Welcome, Kelly Ray. We also have Ian John, CCGI Director and CEO of CyberEye, Trinidad and Tobago, and Mr. Jude Houston, Executive Director, St. Martin Chamber of Industry and Commerce from St. Martin. And I see that Ian has a very stark, it's almost like a human representation of a bot. But that's kind of what hopefully we are getting to today. Thank you, Ian. You never cease to keep us on our toes. So let me start with you, since you are the CyberEye guy. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think Dr. Abu Salam's presentation, any one of those topics, we can spend several hours distilling, right? It's a lot of heavy information. The graphic behind me actually was generated using ChatGPT, giving a command of one sentence. So it's just fascinated that this individual, this young lady, doesn't exist. Right, she's a creation of my fingers typing a few words, and so the robot as well. I think we are entering into a new phase that is both very exciting. I think it's the most exciting time to be on planet Earth, but clearly it's also a time that can really create some nervousness and nervousness in a number of fronts. Just to give you an idea. There's some statistics, and we track statistics quite a bit, particularly in the cybersecurity space. Between 2022, May 1st, 2022, and June 20th, 2025, the online platform that reports fraud and crypto scams internet scams, they have seen a 456% increase of generative AI fraudulent scams. That's 456% increase, right? And so what we're seeing is as these tools become prevalent, pervasive, available, the tools are available to enterprises, corporations, governments, but the same tools are available to individuals as well, right? And these tools are being used and can be used for great things. I mean, there's so many great examples that we have of AI, and the graphic behind me is one. But there are hundreds of examples of really bad things, as Professor Garrett was saying. He had a really bad experience, and I hope that worked out for you, Professor Garrett. From a cybersecurity standpoint, you did the right thing in doing nothing, saying nothing, and not replying, right? That's usually advice we give to anyone who's been caught up in cyber fraud. So suffice it to say, to set the stage here today, I think there are some critical discussions that we certainly need to distill. And one is really looking at how individuals, organizations, how do they go about using AI? How do they go about implementing, onboarding AI in the organization? Particularly like Dr. Salem's point, where she talked about that AI maturity. And it's the same position we take in cybersecurity, cyber maturity, right? So what is that? That is a plan. What is the plan? What do you plan to use AI for? I mean, a lot of folks think ChatGPT is sexy, but what is the plan? What does the organization wants to get out of it? What is the benefit you want to get out of it? And once you understand that, then you develop a strategy. What is the strategy? Now think about all of the risks that are involved in using this technology. There are financial risks, there are operational risks, there are legal risks. So it requires a very holistic planning and implementation of that plan and strategy, right? And so within that plan also deals with all of the governance and the IT and the security and the data implications. So I'll pause there now because I know there's quite a number of other topics that we can veer off to.
No, well, thank you for that. Thank you for putting that frame on it. Let me go to Kelly Ray and get her thoughts on the whole AI and her experience. Kelly? Yeah.
All right, good afternoon. Thanks for having me. So
Yep.
I think that generative AI, artificial intelligence overall is not just a technological shift that we're seeing. It's sort of a paradigm shift. It's, I think, reshaping how we look at so many things. It's reshaping how knowledge is created, how our economies function, and how power is distributed. I think for us, especially as Caribbean nation states, this is going to bring about, or is bringing about, unprecedented levels of opportunities, but also conversely, new risks. And these are significant risks. On the one hand, you can leapfrog with overdevelopment gaps, but then on the other hand, it raises urgent questions from a data sovereignty perspective, from a regulatory perspective. Fatima spoke to labor disruption, and there's also an issue of cultural preservation. So I think it's unlike technological waves of the past, AI is here. It's moving fast. It's moving faster than policy frameworks can keep up with. The EU AI Act is already outdated. And there's so much development here. It's no longer, whether we'll be impacted. It's just how will we respond, and what can we do as nations, as private sector stakeholders to help shape the impact that helps to serve our region's priorities. So I'm looking forward to talking more about it, but that's just my general feel.
Thank you very much. Let's go to our next presenter. Go ahead.
President, good afternoon, everyone. If I must, first off, I must say I'm very much happy to be part and parcel of this distinguished panel. and congratulate the CCGI on this opening of the Governance Week. When we look at AI, and if I can bring it into the context of the Caribbean region per se, and knowing how what we are faced with our vulnerabilities, especially if we look at the islands in the northern part of the Caribbean region, where we're so susceptible to external shocks and dependence, import dependence, and so forth. And now we're faced with this AI revolution, and it is here to stay, and it is something that we have to contend with. We cannot run away from it. My on it is that it is something that we have to deal with, and we will have to jointly, whether it be on a regional level, together, come up with a mechanism as to how we can properly manage it, whether it be through a consolidated framework or legislation or so forth. Because again, as I said, it is something that we have to deal with, and as Dr. Fatima firmly put it, if not properly used, we can run so many risks. And my whole take on it is that we will definitely have to formulate and get that proper understanding and as to the direction as to how and what we want to do with AI. I think Ian, you alluded to that likewise. It is something that we have to deal with, and we just have to formulate the right strategies and ensure that we develop the right mechanism as to how we're going to proceed in that with such. Your mic is muted, Nigel.
Yeah, the question for me is, AI presents very, very serious, very, very significant benefits to organizations in improving productivity. The guys who are doing coding, their jobs are in serious trouble because the AI can code better than most, at least at the introductory level. Generating the whole customer service thing, we all know. You call a bank, you're dealing with AI initially. You call your credit card company, the AI answers and then kind of directs you. Customer service for definitely. Marketing plans, selling initiatives. And these are just some of a few of the things that are gaining traction. And as I said, I read this AI 2027 document, and it's like 60 pages long. I mean, I can share the link. But the point is that if we believe AI is a threat today, these guys are predicting that in a year, 2 years, it's going to be a whole different ball game. So the question is, how do we respond as organizations? One, two, how do we respond as governments with an obligation to our citizens, a lot of whose jobs are going to be at risk? And is there the whole universal basic income where you guarantee a certain level of income for everybody, regardless of where they work or who they are, because of the impact on jobs as a result of AI? So I will be interested in hearing what you think about that. Focus on that impact on jobs and job creation or job destruction. Who wants to go first?
If I may,
yeah, go right ahead.
I am thinking that, of course, our governments do have a responsibility to ensure the well-being of all. And I am firmly of the opinion that there must be a, how must I say it, an element of capacity building. There must be an element of capacity building whereby we have to gravitate to the changing times. We will have to develop strategies and programs and initiatives so that we can bring our people up to the times that we are living in. So even if it means that we often you will hear in various jurisdictions that we need to revamp our educational curriculum. Is it that the route we have to take? Probably in some instances, but in overall, in essence, my take on it is that we will have to build that level of capacity among our people so that they can confront, they can engage, they can be part and parcel of what is ahead. If we don't do that, then we're going to be left behind. And again, I want to reiterate that I firmly believe that should be done more on a regional approach if we look at it from the context of the Caribbean region. Because as one person rightfully said a short while ago, not no one country can deal with it on its own when the time comes. So I firmly believe that we will have to come together and develop the necessary programs and policies and legislations and so forth, and capacity building initiatives so that our people can benefit and make the proper use of the AI and in the right context.
Kelly?
Yeah, so I believe that from time immemorial, our economies have changed. We're now moving from an industrial economy to a knowledge economy, a data-driven economy. And with that comes a shift in the types of jobs that are available. I don't think, while there will be jobs that, become a little bit more obsolete, there are going to be a lot more opportunities. And as Jude said, it's for the government to see this as an opportunity to fund and support AI research and AI infrastructure to help with that transition and help with that development, so that while yes, there are jobs being lost, there are more being developed. And that comes with upskilling workers, that comes with upskilling population, that comes with ensuring that there's a certain level of investment that is funneled into this industry. I saw that the Trinidad and Tobago just established its Ministry of AI, Public Administration and Artificial Intelligence. And I think moves like that will help to empower population. If there's an active move on the part of the public sector, so too will there be a move in the private sector. I think the private sector, there's a similar responsibility. Seeing this, if you're not moving ahead, you're lagging behind. If you're not keeping up, if you're not empowering your staff, if you're not building new skills, then in 5 to 10 years, you're no longer a part of the economy. And so if it is that you want to continue to compete in the age of AI, there has to be a lot of data governance that goes into it. So roles that are dealing with data governance will become, I think, even more critical. Roles that are critical to knowledge economy and empowering persons to understand and identify what is needed. Roles in response to, with regards to building responsible AI systems, building responsible infrastructure, and just understanding that will become a lot more critical.
Agreed. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I agree with both speakers. Just to add, I would say that I don't have a whole lot of confidence in terms of leadership from the government standpoint, for the simple fact that this technology doesn't move at the speed of legislation, right? And it's not waiting on government. It's not waiting on the government to pass laws and proclaim laws. It's gone. The genie is out, right? This is disrupting livelihoods. It's disrupting societies. is disrupting the way we socialize. I mean, when you look at some countries like Japan and Asian countries, how they socialize have changed, right? With AI and the persons who don't leave their rooms. There's about a couple million people in Japan who don't leave their rooms. They are isolated. They get married to anime and those characters that are online, and they live their life out online, right? So this genie is gone. Where my concern is, quite frankly, is more from a not knowing what is happening. In every single country in the Caribbean, I could tell you that governments are clueless with regards to what is taking place in the digital space. So I think what is required, firstly, is for government to be able to surveil those digital platforms that citizens are spending an enormous amount of times on. They're living, they're socializing, they're committing crimes, there's a whole different world. That digital world is an entirely different world that they're spending a lot of times. The school kids are also doing the same. So how do we surveil that to really understand? And research is required to understand how is that impacting lives? How are livelihoods changing? This new economic model, as I said previously, the world GDP is $500 quadrillion. Just wrap your mind around that. For the first time in history in 2025, we have multiple organizations that are worth more than $3 trillion. And what has fueled that increase in revenue, in income, in wealth, has been cloud, has been AI, has been all the digital platforms, to which we in the Caribbean, we are not even focused on. We're still talking about infrastructure and drains and roads, right? And this world is way ahead. We are still operating in Industry 3.0. Let's get that on the table. We have not moved from Industry 3.0. So to start talking about Industry 5.0, we don't even have respect for data. I mean, raise your hand if you all understand any organization or government in the Caribbean who have an entire framework around data protection, IP, right? And who also have charged anyone and prosecute someone for misuse of data. Just name one case for me in the Caribbean. None, absolutely none. So I am of the point of view that this genie is gone and forever we are going to be playing catch up. Now, fundamentally, what is required is private organizations and individuals like ourselves and the CCGI. We need to equip our citizenry with knowledge and education to understand how to be relevant, how to play, how to earn, right? How to live and generate your share of wealth in this new digital environment. That is fundamentally it. How are we going to survive? How are we going to generate wealth? I'll give you an example. Microsoft CEO came out just about 3 months ago, and he said there's such a disruption coming. He said businesses don't understand what is coming. Governments don't understand what is coming. And Dr. Abu Salam talked about agentic AI, and I've been playing and working with agentic AI, right? And to just give you an example, if you book a hotel, you go onto the application, you said, okay, I want to book a hotel. Here's my credit card, and you book the hotel. Well, there's now a new agent that you just say, here's my credit card, and you buy anything that I ask you to purchase. I need to book a flight from here to London, take care of it. That agent is doing all of that. That's an agent. That's not an individual. So think about every task that is being done by individuals within your organization. Think about an agent being able to now conduct those tasks. So I tell people, when we're looking at AI, you look at AI in 3 buckets, and this is how the Caribbean needs to look at it. We need to look at the hype and the reality. Here's the reality. There are 3 things that are going to happen. There are jobs that AI, and I say jobs because AI is disrupting jobs, tasks, functions, not people, right? So within the organization, you need to look at the task, the functions, all of the things that can be digitized, that can be automated. And if it can be automated, automate it. But then there are areas where AI is going to augment. In other words, it's going to enhance the job that I am doing. So a lot of manual things that I used to do, I no longer am going to be required because AI can take over those, and I can focus on servicing more. I can focus on a number of other new tasks. And you said it, Kelly, which is, the new tasks that we need to upskill. So my role as a GP, a general practitioner, and this is a real example. I had a scan a couple months ago. I got the results of the scan. and I basically asked ChatGPT to give me the full result and interpret the result. It did provide me full interpretation. And by the way, ChatGPT passed the medical examination board in a couple of minutes. So I was in good hands. I got the report and I took it to my doctor. My doctor said, this is perfect. As a matter of fact, it also pointed out some areas that I would not consider. So the point is, there are going to be jobs that can be enhanced and certain tasks that are going to be enhanced. And we should be able to identify those and say, okay, this is where we think we can upgrade, uptool, upskill certain workers so that they're not disrupted or they're not lost in the system. And then the third bucket, which is the bucket we should all be concerned about, and by the way, the young people are not waiting for us. They've gone ahead. They're earning online. They're influencers. They're making a lot of money. They're making money in Bitcoin and crypto, etc., because they got it. They get it. They understand it. All of the new opportunities that are going to be created by AI, and there are going to be millions of jobs, millions of ways of earning income that we see. $500 quadrillion that is being created is actually new jobs that are being created. How do we prepare our education system, our young people, our current workers to be able to tap into those new areas that is going to be generated by AI? CEO of Google said, Mr. Pichai said, he said this about AI. He says, AI is so fundamental. The impact of AI on society and the world will be more profound than fire.
Revolution.
Can you believe that? And electricity. And I can't fathom that. My mind cannot wrap itself around what would be more impactful than electricity. I mean, think about the world without electricity. But think about the world without a good burger, because there's no fire. And these are scientists who are saying that. So I think really and truly, the genie is out, and we have to find a way to make this work, make it relevant for us in the Caribbean.
Yep. Jude, you have your hand up.
Yes, in support to what Ian mentioned, indeed, I don't think it will worth anything waiting on our regional governments, quite honestly. And I am thinking in the context of on a corporate level, on the private sector, as to what sort of intervention can we do in the interim then? Because I firmly believe that as corporations, we do have a responsibility likewise. And even if you look at it in terms of from a board and executive branch of any corporation, they already have their objective as to what they want to achieve. And how can we then decide, okay, then how can we incorporate the level of, how can we influence a sort of AI, the level of AI intervention that we want within our corporations? So that means we will have to tap up with the speed likewise. And I firmly believe that we can also then make certain demands. And that is how you will get our people who are interested, who do not want to be displaced. Then they will, then that more or less force them to, how must I say, to get the relevant capacity so as to be within the organization. So in essence, I firmly believe that as a private sector, we indeed do have a role and responsibility in influencing that expectations.
Go ahead, Kelly.
Yeah, so I agree with you totally. I think the private sector definitely has a huge role to play in this, especially because AI is moving too quick for, I think, the government or any of that bureaucratic process to even keep up. But what it means is that we have to move from being passive viewers to strategic owners of how AI is shaped within the region. So a lot of that capacity building has to be driven, I think, and I think basically is what both Jude and Ian are saying, has to be driven from the private sector. And that means that whether it is that we take a principled approach to protecting our data, I do think, Ian, there might be one or two companies that have some data governance frameworks. I won't call them. But whether that means like building your own data governance framework, crafting the policies and reflecting the values of responsible AI, of trustworthy AI, and building kind of building out that sector in the private sector. That's something that we, as the private sector, have to take on. And it means that we have to invest ourselves in the digital infrastructure to support the development of regional AI talent, and also kind of asserting, even from the private sector perspective, our own voice in the global governance conversations. I think that's the only way we get to move at the pace that the rest of the world is moving at.
And so I have a different question, because I see even our private sector, our public sector, our governments as being too small to really impact. Is there a role for a United Nations of AI, some sort of global organization? And there is going to be bureaucracy, but at least we would have players from different parts with different agenda coming together. Is there to set up the governance, to set up the standards, something like a standards board, if you will, for governance?
So you have
Well, somebody said the OECD.
Yeah, okay.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, so you have the OECD
Yeah.
that has already gone forward and established AI principles. And that's important because the OECD was also the first out of the gate to establish privacy and data protection principles, which form the basis of GDPR. I think also there have been meetings, I'm aware of meetings at the UN, working groups that are focused on AI and AI governance. And if it is that I believe that if it is that we want to take kind of a more active role, CARICOM can get together and also drive some of those conversations and be a part
Through
of
the
that
OECD,
be a part of that global conversation.
Edward has shared a link to some of the principles, the AI principles. Thank you very much, Edward. I also shared that AI 2027.com link. And I encourage you, because these guys, one of them used to work with OpenAI and was fired and almost lost his shares, but fought and retained his shares. But they do forecasting of where they see AI going and how it's going to develop. But it's very, very interesting reading, and I would encourage everybody to read it. But I have a different question for you guys, and I discussed it with Kamala. So we're talking about training AI and ensuring that AI is aligned with our purpose, with our values, etc. And the question I had is, and in the Bloomberg article, they speak of managers of AI. So the people who are going to be most productive are the people who are going to learn how to manage AI and use AI effectively. And the problem I have is that most of our leaders, most of our managers do a very poor job of ensuring that our human intelligence is aligned with our purpose. Most people in organizations don't know why they are there. They don't know their purpose. They don't know what a good job looks like. And nobody is there guiding them and leading them and managing them to achieve the kinds of productivity they can achieve without AI. I want to hear your response to that. Kelly, you look like you want to go first.
So it's interesting that you brought that up, because agentic AI, as Professor Fatima would have kind of walked us through, there are currently three types. You can categorize it right now into three types of agentic AI. You have what you call human in the loop, human on the loop, and human out of the loop. Human in the loop is basically the agent does something and it waits on an actual person for confirmation.
To tell it.
Yeah, and then human on the loop, the agents can go and do what it's doing, but it's being monitored. And then human out of the loop, there's no human involved. With regards to human involvement and AI managers, I would say that any deployment of AI, at least in its current state, any responsible deployment requires human in or on the loop. You run into, I think, regulatory risks, especially when you have, privacy or data protection issues at play, when it's human out of the loop. Persons not knowing what they're doing in the jobs, I can't really speak to that. I think that sounds like there is some need for upskilling there. But I think there is an opportunity to not look at AI as maybe a competitor, but as a tool that can be leveraged, and that we can kind of use to improve whatever it is that we're doing going forward.
I agree with you 100%. And please don't hesitate to raise your questions or open your mic and ask a question as we discuss these very important topics. Ian, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, I was just going to add to what Kelly Ray said, in that when we advise and implement AI within corporate environments at this point in time, particularly in the Caribbean, we advise clients and we would implement what is called your on-prem AI. So you are still using the same tools, still using all of the large learning models. And what we do is we ensure that the data that is being shared is obviously shared within the security and the policy parameters. So all of those policies, governance, controls are built into that system. And then secondly, that system is in your environment, so the data doesn't leave your environment. So you have the ability to control the data. That's the only recommendation we make to private sector companies, especially those who fall under the ambit of data protection, particularly GDPR, particularly some of the data protection acts across the region. We don't recommend that you implement cloud-based AI systems for the simple reason of having that control, right? And it works and it works well. And it can be audited and it can be shut down. And you can export the data off of the system. So you own the system. The challenge is when we start having these AI tools that are sitting out there and the transparency is not there, and you don't know who else has access to it, and there's no offboarding. If you decide to not use the system anymore, where does your data lie? Are you allowed to offboard your data? Those are real fundamental issues, and I'm just using the layman terms without getting into the at this point in time.
Edward had some question. How is the enterprise risk management program handling this emerging risk? And again, I believe it goes back to understanding how the AI, whichever AI you're using, how it has been trained, and what, as Professor Abu Salem said, what has it been trained on or with, and being very careful to understand and not just accept what the AI generates. One has to begin to learn. But do any of you have experience with this? How are enterprise risk management programs handling the AI risk? Any? I mean, I don't know if you have firsthand, Ian or Kelly.
So from what I can see is that a lot of enterprise risk management programs, whether regionally and internationally, what they've been doing is kind of subsuming it under their data privacy, data governance framework. If you're in an organization that has any kind of privacy and data governance framework, it's very easy to kind of add that AI element, that AI due diligence on top of that. And a lot of the bigger risks with AI comes with the handling of data. It comes with transparency, bias, ensuring, how it is being used is equitable and ethical. And so what I've found is that it's sometimes centered almost in the legal and compliance department with a shared responsibility. And it depends on the organization, because if you're an organization that is developing and deploying AI internally, then it is from data collection to data analysis all the way to deployment of the AI system. But if you're in an organization that might be just leveraging an AI tool that is already available, then it is more so on the procurement, legal engagement, and where there's an assessment of that AI system. And so it's almost being merged, I find, with risks that are already present in the enterprise risk management program.
Let me just say though, let me just to it that it's easier said than done. So, I mean, just looking at the enterprise risk framework, it's a really, really beautiful framework. But typically, does it actually work? Right? Because for you to know that it works, you have to get down to the operational level, and typically it doesn't get down to that level. So firstly, when we talk about data and using it and enshrining it with the data, what we found is that customers don't know where their data are being held, and they don't know who's holding what, and they don't know who's sharing what, right? So for instance, someone sends an application into an organization to me in my email, but that application I forward to another manager, but the files are still in my outbox. They're still sitting in my email, right? And so that's the issue we have with data, really understanding data and really having the governance around data. And that's the point I was making earlier on, Kelly, that I mean, I have an organization that operates in the UK, and we have to be GDPR compliant. And every shred of data, we must be able to account for every shred of data, because that law requires you to be able to account for where the data is, who has the data, when was it accessed. To the point, if a user asks me to tell them everything about their data, I must be able to produce a report to that end user. And that's the essence of GDPR. I must be able to say to that end user, this is what your data has been used for. This is all the times it has been accessed in the last month for these reasons. And if I cannot produce that, then I'm not in compliance with GDPR. We don't have that type of robust data management policy systems in the Caribbean. And if anyone could tell me any organization, I would love to do a case study with that organization, because I think that case study needs to be shared with other entities to be able to be replicated across the Caribbean. How do we see it, and how do we know when there are breaches in the cybersecurity space and we are there, we're the first responders. So we know some of the largest organizations in the Caribbean has been breached, ransomed. We know. Right? So this is factual. The other point, Nigel, not to come off, I think this is very important for us to understand when we talk about AI. And I mean, Dr. Salim, Abu Salim did not bring this point up, right? And this is fundamentally why you may find that I'm a bit pessimistic. AI is an arms race. So when you think about the race, it's an arms race. Whoever gets to dominate AI, whoever gets to arrest control of AI, now is in control of the wealth of the future of the planet. So when we talk about things like sustainability, so for instance, many of the larger players in the space, such as Microsoft and Google, what are they doing right now? They are purchasing nuclear power plants to power
around the AI.
data centers and the AI, right? Because if you don't have the power, then what happens? You're not able to run the sophisticated, very complex modeling and tools required to do some of the things that the futurists are saying will happen in the next 20 years. So there are two people at war. There's a place that I'm in right now, a country that I'm in right now, and there's another place in the Far East, right? And these are the two that are going at it to say, okay, we want to be the dominant player. And there's a whole an entire chip embargo that is not being allowed for one country to have access to. That's fundamentally what is behind. So when people are saying, let's create a lobby group and let's lobby, both sides know that if they stop, the other side is going to continue to advance the development, and therefore they are not going to be advanced. So so let's get off that train. let's decide. So if you notice, like, two people behind me, they're now smiling, right? They're finding a way to work together, right? They're coming up with some terms and conditions in terms of how they will work together so that they can both benefit, man and the machine, as we say, right?
Yep.
That's
No,
what
and exactly what you said there is what these guys did in AI 2027. It's fascinating, and they go month by month, and they go from GPT-4 to 5 to 6 to 7 to 8. I mean, it's madness. Jude.
My take on
And
it.
by the way, for those, sorry, Jude, let me just
No
make this
problem.
announcement. We have the SurveyMonkey link. So those online and attending, please take some time to fill it out. But Jude, go ahead.
Yeah, my take on it is that I firmly believe that there is little impact, little effect from that of the enterprise risk framework that can really and truly, how must I say, protect the information that is shared from any organization. Because yes, you may have, for example, you may have a compliance department and compliance policies and regulations within the organization. But once you engage from a foreign AI agency or service provider, there goes your data. You have no control over that thereafter. So my take on it is that it is something that it is part of the risk that we run when we do engage with those entities or AI agencies or providers. Once the data gets out, you have no control over it thereafter.
Well, it depends on the leverage you bring to the relationship, right? I think Ian kind of alluded to having your data being stored locally it gives you kind of that sovereignty, that control over your data. And then if it is you're a smaller company, yeah, chances are no. If you're a larger organization, there might be some negotiation that you have to one, request the ability to audit what's happening with your data. Yes, you don't know for sure. You can't see. You're contracting with these people for certain things to happen. But depending on how the model is built, and just say it's what you call an up-trained model, where on the basis of it, they're using an already established model like ChatGPT, but they've put on top of it a reasoning algorithm, and that sits with like this third-party company. You might have a little bit more control into how that data is used. But I think it's definitely a risk the moment you're engaging with a third party who will have access to your data. The risk exists, and it's, again, I think Edward was saying it in the chat. It's to know, inform all these stakeholders. You almost have to ensure that your stakeholders are asking the right questions and they are now aware of AI systems, of the different type of models that might exist, the different architecture. It's a lot of investment in this data stewardship that will have to happen, and companies will have to invest in. Ian seems to want to say something.
Ian is getting excited. Oh my God. He can't help himself.
I can't help myself because I've been having this conversation with leaders in the Caribbean for the last 15 years, right? And let me just bring this home. Let me bring it home and land it.
Okay.
What is the basic fundamental of AI? What does AI need to exist, to be relevant? Data. What is the Caribbean known for? Data. Everybody's
so
silent.
what I'll say is that we do have a lot of data.
Everybody's producing data. Everybody has a lot of data. But let's land it, because the plane in land here is about 50 feet above the ground. What is the subject that Dr. Abu Salam said she was fortunate that she was a what? She did what?
Was a what? Sorry.
Mathematics.
Okay.
Yeah, mathematics.
She did her grounding in mathematics. Let us make no mistake. AI is all about mathematics. What is the subject that we have the highest failure rate in the Caribbean?
The one I just mentioned.
Thank you. I rest my case. You want to deal and you want to have a future in this space? Let the educators and the legislators and all the government officials give that attention. If you're not strong in mathematics, you're not playing in the space. You will be a consumer maybe at a level where you're using graphical interface and you're using voice commands and you're using some level of prompting, but you are not a player in this space. So every time I hear governments talk about this, and I see we have a government in Trinidad now with the Ministry of Public Administration and AI, well, they need to get the Ministry of Education to start really teaching our students how to do mathematics and pass it, not at 50%. They need to be getting 100%. Because look at Asia. Look at Asia's pass mark with mathematics. And that's why China is going guns. That is why China is a real threat to the US for dominance in this space. It comes down to the fundamentals. All the nice talk about legislation and protection and enterprise and all of that. Fundamentally, it's mathematics. Fundamentally, it's data. Fundamentally. There's another point that I want to put on the table. I've been tracking this for the last 20 years. I've spoken about it publicly a number of times. How many patents exist within the Caribbean? Don't even bother. Go
Yeah. That's a function of your universities and your
That's
education
a function
system.
of your whole creativity and your wealth.
Yeah.
And fundamentally, there are countries like the United States of America and there are countries like China who are generating billions of dollars, and the UK billions of dollars every year just from royalties from patents. They don't need to do anything. They just need to just collect money off of royalty of patents. How do we make money in the Caribbean? Tourism. That's a finite resource. So talking about AI, we come back to the fundamentals. It comes back to people. It comes back to how we govern, how we lead. I am sorry, but that's basically what it is. I'm at a conference here, and one of the topics is going to be AI, and some of the best minds. Actually, the CEO of NVIDIA is carded to be here as well.
NVIDIA, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and it's mathematics.
Yeah.
It's all about mathematics.
It's all about mathematics. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's not kid ourselves. That's it. We'll be users. We'll be consumers. But we'll be very low, what we call soft touch or low touch consumers.
So I definitely agree with you. We are going to be consumers. There's definitely a lot of investment that needs to go into education, the basics of it. I do think, though, that just like the rest of the world, we have the data. That's the oil. And so if we can find a way to even monetize that and participate in the industry, I think while we might not be the developers, we might not be the mathematicians, the patents might not necessarily come from here. I think we can have a seat at the table. It might not be in the way that we want to because of the lack of resource. But I definitely think there is an opportunity for us because we also, the data that we bring, Fatima also touched on colonialism. If we do not show up for that, it means that all the data that is all the decisions that are being made, all the data that is gathered, all the algorithms that are built, we won't have a say. It won't necessarily be reflective of us, and the digital divide will continue to get broader. And so while I definitely agree we don't have necessarily as strong a foundation as we need, I think we should be trying to ensure that we are part of the conversation, that we're showing up, and that our information is a part of this ecosystem.
So let me just close by sharing some AI because Sharon asked a question and she wanted to know, what was it? Can you indicate at what rate Caribbean governments are adopting or prepared to adopt AI? Is private sector adoption outpacing government adoption? So of course I went and I asked AI. The Caribbean AI market is projected to reach $265.8 million US in 2025 is an expected annual growth rate of 26.26%, resulting in a market volume of 1.08 billion US dollars by 2031. This growth is driven primarily by private sector adoption across multiple industries. Analysis indicates that 30 to 40% of jobs in Latin America and the Caribbean are exposed to generative AI, with potential productivity boosts of 8 to 12% for regional jobs. However, up to 17 million jobs may not leverage AI benefits due to digital infrastructure limitations. And it concludes, now it had a lot before that, and I'm just summarizing. The Caribbean private sector AI adoption is clearly outpacing government implementation, driven by competitive pressures, operational efficiency needs, and the ability to move quickly without bureaucratic constraints. While governments are making progress through policy development and regional collaboration initiatives, the private sector is actively deploying AI solutions across tourism, finance, healthcare, and other key industries. And Ian gave an example of healthcare there. So we have a critical window of opportunity to accelerate AI adoption before falling behind global competitors. Very interesting. That's AI at work. Thank you all very much. I enjoyed this conversation. Kamla, what do you have? What do you have? I'll hand it over to you to wrap us up. But thank you all, Kelly Ray, Jude, and Ian. Very, very informative. And look, Ian has gone with a whole family now. God, I can't stop him.
Yes, the pace at which AI is moving. Thank you. And Nigel, that was Simone Bailey from Suriname. I met her here at the NSA conference and invited her.
Bailey.
I'm so happy we have quite a few people from Suriname who have joined us for this opening ceremony here. This panel did not disappoint me. It was really, really a great conversation. I just want to ask the panelists if they wanted to do a brief closing remarks. Nigel, Ian, we should start with you. Just give us context for that family, because you started off with the fight, then the negotiation that was taking place, and it seemed to have reached a happy place.
Yeah, I mean, I think at the end of the day, when we look at all of the previous changes with the various industrial revolutions, right? I always say this, there's one constant, and the one constant is people, right? Humans are resilient. We will continue to be resilient. And I think there's going to be a lot more opportunities that are going to be created than jobs that are going to be lost, right? I honestly believe that. For the Caribbean, however, I have faith in the next generation, the young folks who understand it, who are born in this era and really get it. So their mind are not tethered to the analog systems of governance and of, you know, the way how you earn physically, right? They understand that the world is a global space with 8 billion people, and there's literally no barriers between them and the rest of the world, because when they get onto their platforms, they have the ability to access billions and billions, right? And fundamentally, that is where I am spending a lot of time with those young folks and really understanding, because I can only interpret the world through them. They understand it, right? I still have a mental block with regards to how I understand the world that has been framed by my experiences. So I think there are a couple people, and I'll close with this. There are a couple authors that I follow, Ray Kurzweil, who's a futurist, worked with Google, Pichai. They've all come out and said that.
How do you spell Kurzweil?
Ray Kurzweil.
How do you spell his last name?
Kurzweil.
K or C?
It's a K. It's with a K. He creates the keyboards and voice synthesis. He's been a futurist for many years. There's also Jeffrey Hinkson, who's the godfather of AI. So you saw Abu Salam talk about AI starting in the 50s. He was there when it started. But they've all come out and said one thing, in that we don't even grasp and understand how this thing is going to impact us fundamentally. And they've also said that a lot of what we're thinking is underestimated. They think the impact is going to be over the top.
Mm-hmm.
And they're saying that based on the insights they have, first-hand insights, without saying what they have experienced, right? So I think for us, it has to be vigilance and really constantly learning, because this thing is evolving very, very quickly. It's changing, right? It's updating itself on almost on a daily basis, the speed at which it's taking place, which is frightening. But I'm optimistic that the future is bright with abundance and opportunities. Well, based on if we can get these world leaders now to stop firing missiles at each other.
Yeah, at each other.
Right? So thank you so much for having me today.
Yes, thank you, Nigel.
Kurt, Jude?
Yeah, to close off, if I may, I would like to say that I think, as Ian mentioned, our people in the region are our greatest asset. And as leaders, meaning from the government and the private and corporate and the private sector, we really and truly will have to get on course and lead with intention. We have to be precise as to what it is that we really want, and how we can make use of this AI revolution, and not just being passive consumers of the technology, but how can we be part and parcel of the architecture and its development, especially for our young ones. I have always said it among when I do presentations with the business sector here on St. Martin, that I am just too tired of reading that a 17-year-old in New Jersey or in Miami or whatever developed an app and sold it for 15 million. Why is it our young people in the region not doing that? So it means that we have to start doing what is necessary to get them up on that level, so that in the region we'll be proud. Ian, you and myself, we will be in our rocking chairs, watching the others do what is necessary and say, yes, we did pave the way, that they can be part and parcel or consider themselves architect of the digital future. Thank you.
Thank you. Kelly Ray?
Yeah, and just to add to that, what that looks like for me is that the private sector has to decide that it's going to play a role. It's going to have to decide that it's playing a role in education. It has to decide that it's going to play a role in developing local talent. It has to decide that it's going to, as Jude said, lead with intention. The innovation will come, but if we decide that we want to build an ecosystem, an AI ecosystem, a knowledge-driven ecosystem, a data-driven ecosystem that supports economic growth, it really starts with where the resources are, and that starts with us deciding as a people that this is what we want to invest in. We want to invest in the data stewardship. We want to invest in the future or children coming up. I think this goes through collaboration. I think collaboration is always good. Private public collaboration with regulators, academia. I think it's quite possible for us to do it. It's not going to. We can't rely on the government alone. But we have the talent there. We're so rich in culture. We're so rich in ideas. I think it's possible. But I think it's gonna be a strategic approach, and it has to be a shared collaborative approach.
Definitely. Well, thank you all very much. I will end by saying that I think we have also an opportunity to work with our human intelligence systems and the people that work for us, because we keep saying it, the people are our greatest asset, and then we develop command and control structures to tell them what to do as opposed to engaging them in value creation. So for me, it is that is the thing that hit me. Me spending so much time looking to train artificial intelligence, and in the meantime, we have a lot of human intelligence that we don't really get the best out of, and grow them and build them to become really productive and contribute to our society. So thank you all very much. I enjoyed this. And thank you, Dr. Millington, I believe. Edward Millington, very good contributions, and I copied all your links. So thank you.
You're welcome, sir.
Thank you very much, Nigel. So we bring the opening ceremony for Governance Week to an end. And I want to remind everyone, please look at the survey link that's posted in the chat. I think Monique already posted it. She did it twice so that you don't miss it. Please click on the link. Give us your feedback today so that we have that to take with us as we strive to improve what we do here at CCGI. This panel discussion absolutely did not disappoint me. And what it proved, as a region, we have a responsibility for where our countries will be 2 decades from now. There's so much for us to discuss over the next 5 days. And I am an eternal optimist. And I get that from our panelists as well, despite the challenges that we have all identified. We understand that there's much to do to catch up, but we can find a way to take charge of our own destinies. And as they said, the private sector has a major role to play in this, pushing governments if we need to in terms of education policy and ensuring that our young people are prepared. Because I am not waiting for the next generation. I want to join Jude and Ian as they sit in their rocking chairs and feel satisfied that I too did in ensuring that we helped pave the way for how our young generation will be able to move forward. So a very special thank you to our opening keynote, Fatima Abu Salem, for her wide-ranging address and the concerns that she raised with respect to AI challenges first. Thanks to our global ambassador, Professor Bob Garrett, our chairman and very capable moderator, Nigel Romano. Our panelists, Jude Houston, joining us from St. Martin, Ian John, who is currently in Las Vegas, Kelly Ray Campbell from Jamaica, and to Avia Lindy as well for her support in introducing our keynote. Thank you to our CCGI team, Warren Anderson, who ran the live stream today, Quentrell De Silva, online technical support, and Laura Sinanan, Jacqueline DeChaussee, and Monique Romano for their hard work in helping to manage the online room. As we close today, I want to say a very special thank you again to our sponsors, Platinum sponsors, Massey Holdings, our 2 silver sponsors, First Citizens Bank and Trident Trust BVI Limited, our 6 bronze sponsors, Angostura Holdings, Republic Bank, PwC Trinidad and Tobago, J. Rowe and Sons from Belize, and our 2 new sponsors this year, Infosys Limited and B-Mobile. Thank you all as we officially bring this opening ceremony to an end. We look forward to seeing all of you during the next 5 days of conference for some stimulating discussions. Have a wonderful evening. Bye now.